My CEO fiancé said the company wasn't doing well and cut my salary in half, but then I saw his little assistant bragging on social media. The boss not only gave me a raise but also bought me a luxury car because he was worried I'd get tired commuting. So thoughtful. In the photo, she and my fiancé stood in front of the newly purchased $1 million luxury car, looking blissfully happy. I pondered for 2 seconds, then gave a like. That night, my fiancé called an emergency meeting. Using my disruption of company morale as an excuse to deduct my entire month's salary, compensating his assistant for emotional distress, everyone looked at me with sympathy, expecting me to throw a tantrum. But I simply packed up my workstation calmly and handed my resignation letter to him. Just deducting pay for bullying colleagues isn't enough. I'm resigning. Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. As soon as the words were spoken, Assistant Marjorie was the first to react. Catherine, how can you resign over such a trivial matter? You've been with the company for so long, and Mr. Albert has always treated you so well. What will people think of him if you resign at this critical moment? Mr. Albert, come and talk some sense into Catherine too. Albert might have wanted to persuade me earlier, but after hearing Marjorie's words, his temper flared up too. What's there to persuade? If she wants to leave, let her go. I conduct myself with integrity and fear no gossip from anyone. He immediately took my resignation letter, signed it, and then flung it back into my face. The colleagues watching the scene all stared at me, waiting for a spectacle, but unlike before, I didn't argue. Instead, I calmly picked up the resignation form from the floor. I'll leave once I've handed over my work. No need for handover. Get the hell out now. Albert pointed to the door and, as if remembering something, added coldly, no compensation for voluntary resignation. Seeing this, my colleagues who were on good terms with me all advised me to swallow my pride and apologize, not to act on impulse. They all know that this company was founded by me alongside Albert from the ground up. Back when the company was short on funds, I drank until I vomited blood to secure investments. When projects fell behind, I led the team through 3 sleepless nights to catch up. I poured endless effort and emotion into every business endeavor. Leaving now means abandoning everything. But my mind was made up. After thanking them, I packed my things and walked away. Before leaving, I clearly saw Albert flash a hint of complexity in his eyes. I know, he thinks I won't leave. We've had many fights over Marjorie before. The worst time, Albert publicly scolded me and deducted my entire year's bonus to compensate her. I was so angry that I threatened to quit. But when it came time to leave, I held back. I went back to him as if nothing had happened, speaking softly, and continued working as usual, pretending the incident never occurred. He thinks this time I'll still convince myself to make peace with it. But he didn't know that my patience with him had run out. Just as I stepped out of the company, a text message came through. I opened it and saw it was a transfer from a friend. This morning Albert mentioned the company's poor performance and said they would have to cut my salary. My first reaction was worrying about his stress, so I immediately contacted a friend to arrange a loan of $500,000. I originally intended to give it to him, but then I accidentally saw Marjorie's social media post. Only then did I suddenly realize Albert's intention, yet, surprisingly, my heart remained unexpectedly calm at that moment, neither sad nor consumed by jealousy. Perhaps because it had happened too many times, Albert has done so many absurd things for Marjorie that I can hardly tell whether his girlfriend is me or Marjorie. I returned the money to my friend, thanked her, and walked to the garage. I found that decade-old beat-up car, its paint chipped in several places. Parked beside it was a brand new Porsche, the very one Albert had just given to Marjorie today. There are plenty of empty spots in the garage, yet she chose to park right here, clearly. This is a provocation aimed at me. I've been with Albert for 10 years, yet I mean less to him than Marjorie, who just joined 10 months ago. I let out a self-deprecating laugh. Without hesitation, I stepped on the gas and left the company where I had worked for several years. Just as I exited the company gate, I got rear-ended. I got out of the car, only to see Albert and Marjorie stepping out of the car behind me. Catherine, why did you brake so suddenly? I didn't have time to react. Marjorie said, stepping forward and looking heartbroken at the dented front of her car. What a shame. This was carefully chosen by Mr. Albert. Albert's face grew increasingly dark. Catherine, I saw you eyeing Marjorie's car in the garage earlier. Tell me honestly, was it intentional? Did you know Marjorie was behind you and slammed on the brakes on purpose to get back at her? I almost laughed at his accusation. Again, blaming me indiscriminately for everything. Marjorie sighed. Enough, Mr. Albert, let's not blame Catherine. It's only natural that she's angry with me since she lost her job because of me. After all, it's all my fault. If only I had been more careful. As she spoke, she let out a sigh of frustration, clearly just an act. But somehow Albert couldn't see it. He rubbed her shoulder sympathetically and said dotingly, "It's not your fault. Don't take everything upon yourself." After saying that, he tapped my forehead heavily. "Catherine, can't you learn from Marjorie? She knows how to be modest. After working for so many years, do you still have to be this petty and immature?" I staggered from his push, and after regaining my composure, found it somewhat amusing. Over the past year, Marjorie has constantly stolen credit from me, played mind games, and pinned blame on me. Now, she's portrayed as humble and responsible, while I'm made out to be petty and immature, knowing that further conversation would be a waste of breath. I couldn't be bothered to say more and turned to leave. Albert stopped me again. I thought he was going to ramble on defending Marjorie again, but unexpectedly, he pulled me aside. He said with earnest sincerity, "Catherine, it's because I have such high expectations of you that I'm being strict. Why can't you understand my good intentions?" Listening to his gentle words, I was still somewhat puzzled. However, I soon understood his intention. Albert patted me on the shoulder. "I'll withdraw the resignation request. Think it over and apologize to Marjorie. Also, you're fully at fault for this rear-end collision. Transfer whatever compensation is due to Marjorie." I came to my senses. I looked up at Marjorie. She probably already knew what Albert was talking about. Her face full of smugness as she provocatively rolled her eyes at me. I let out a mocking laugh. "I won't pay for it. Figure out whose fault the rear-end collision was yourself. If you can't, just call the police. I have other things to do. I'm leaving now." I turned and walked away. Albert darkened his expression behind me, his voice icy. "I've already given you a chance. Don't regret it." Regret? No regrets. I got back in the car and sent a message to my friend. "I quit my job. I can start at your company tomorrow." My friend called back in less than half a second, sounding pleasantly surprised. "Are you serious?" She hesitated slightly. "But what about Albert?" Back then, my friend and Albert started their businesses around the same time. Compared to Albert, who was starting completely from scratch, my friend had more abundant resources and more attractive benefits. My friend was severely lacking in technical expertise, so she promised me higher shares and profits, hoping I would go help them. Even after learning about my relationship with Albert, she exceptionally offered me a part-time position, but for Albert, I refused without hesitation. Back when I was at my lowest, lying in the snow and nearly freezing to death, it was Albert who dragged me into the police station and saved my life. I am deeply grateful to him. So I abandoned everything and devoted myself wholeheartedly to the business, striving to make Albert's company grow step by step. But now, it seems they don't care at all. Besides, after all these years, no matter how you calculate it, it's more than enough to repay their kindness. There's no need for me to keep forcing myself either. No need. I can decide for myself. After chatting with my friend for a bit longer and finalizing the contract signing time, I drove home to pack my things. Although I paid for this apartment in full, it's filled with memories of me and Albert, and I no longer plan to live here. I started by cleaning under the bed and found numerous paintings scattered there. The paintings depicted a young man sometimes smiling, sometimes melancholy, occasionally peeling an apple with his head down, or applying makeup while looking in the mirror. These are all Albert. Every expression of his is full of vivid vitality. They were all sketches I once drew for him. He also loved it when I drew quick sketches for him, treasuring each one like a precious gem, framing and preserving them carefully. But ever since Marjorie appeared, he became impatient, dismissing drawing as old-fashioned and a waste of time. Preferring to simply take photos with a camera, he no longer liked me drawing for him. Even these paintings were carelessly thrown under the bed, the paper yellowed and aged, the portraits on them faded. I let out a bitter laugh. I tossed them into the basin in the bathroom and lit a corner. The flames devoured the paintings completely, leaving nothing but a handful of ashes. Like the love between us, it has unknowingly burned to ashes. After doing all this, I cleared out everything that could be thrown away. I didn't have many belongings, yet the room still looked much emptier and more spacious. I threw myself onto the sofa, picked up my phone, and prepared to look for rental properties near my friend's company. But as soon as I opened it, I noticed Marjorie had sent a picture to the company group chat. It was a photo of her and Albert, taken at an arcade. In the background, Marjorie held a bunch of plush toys, smiling at the camera, while Albert stood beside her, gazing at her with adoration and contentment. I rarely see him smile like that anymore. I had taken him to the arcade before, but as soon as we exchanged tokens at the entrance, he turned around and left, calling me childish and saying he was too busy to waste time on such trivial things. He never had time for me. Yet he has time to accompany Marjorie, I scoffed. It wasn't that he disliked childishness, he simply disliked me. Many colleagues in the group also showered Marjorie with flattery, praising her beauty, comparing her to a celestial being, while others complimented the photographer's skills. Some even jokingly asked if the two were about to announce good news. Actually, they all know I am Albert's girlfriend. But the reason they dared to make such jokes was simply because Albert never bothered to hide his ambiguous relationship with Marjorie at work. In the past, I would probably have gotten angry again and called Albert to remind him to mind his boundaries. But now, I felt completely calm, pretending not to see it. I went back to my own business. However, 2 minutes later when I checked the group again, I noticed several messages had been deleted, including the photo Marjorie had originally posted. I thought Albert wouldn't be back until late at night again. Little did I know, he soon walked into the living room, talking on the phone with Marjorie. His expression softened. When he saw me, his face first showed a hint of guilt for a split second, then darkened as he deliberately walked past me and pushed open the bedroom door. I knew he was waiting for me to coax him. Every time there's unhappiness at the company, I try every possible way to apologize to him and beg for his forgiveness. Even when he's the one at fault, I still force myself to admit the wrongdoing against my conscience. I used to think it was my duty, whether out of gratitude or to maintain this relationship. I felt I should be the one comforting him, but now, I just find it all tiresome. I lowered my head and continued with what I was doing. Before long, he walked out of the room with a gloomy expression. Did you see the message in the group chat? What message? I asked knowingly, without looking up. I sensed he seemed to relax. Nothing, just a work message sent to the wrong group. I found it amusing but couldn't be bothered to call him out. I just wondered how much more about him and Marjorie he was hiding from me without my knowledge. Marjorie, that car is fixed. Has yours been repaired? Seeing my silence, Albert spoke again. I knew this was his signal giving me an out. In the past, I would have immediately assumed he'd forgiven me and eagerly tried to win him over. But now, without even looking up, I said indifferently, just a broken car, not worth fixing. Albert frowned. What do you mean by that? I looked up at him in confusion, unsure what he was unhappy about. This car has been scratched many times before, and every time I mentioned getting it fixed, he would say the same thing as just now. I thought he was going to lose his temper again, but unexpectedly, he let out a sigh. I know you're still upset about the company, but Marjorie has been doing really well lately. I gave her the car to retain her as a valuable talent. Hearing this, I almost laughed out loud. Marjorie was hired by Albert as an exception, but her work performance is a complete mess. The mistakes she's made are too numerous to count. From small things like ordering plain boiled water for the client and milk tea for yourself during meetings, to major mistakes like accidentally sending the base price sheet instead of the quoted price sheet to a partner, causing the company to lose hundreds of thousands. Keeping her is worse than keeping a dog. If I weren't fully aware of the company's situation, I might have actually believed Albert's words. I remained silent. Albert continued, "You're my girlfriend. When we get married in the future, won't the whole company be yours? Why obsess over salary amounts? Why must you compete with her? Catherine, everything I've done is for the company. I don't want other colleagues to think I'm favoring you." Deep down, I knew these were just excuses. In the office, everyone knows how Albert treats me and Marjorie. The project I spent 3 sleepless nights completing, he whimsically handed it over to Marjorie, who just made a PPT and claimed it as Marjorie's achievement. After negotiating with the client for days and being on the verge of signing the contract, he used my name to take Marjorie out for a meal with the other party, and suddenly the contract became one that Marjorie secured. Such incidents were too numerous to count. Over time, other colleagues began to feel that Albert favored Marjorie more. They even believed Albert disliked me, and as a result, I endured many scornful looks and mistreatment at the company. He saw it all but chose to turn a blind eye. I don't want to explain. Anyway, any explanation would just be dismissed by him as making excuses. Oh, I responded indifferently, "You don't need to tell me these things. I'm no longer connected to the company. Do whatever you think is best." Albert remained silent. Finally, he sighed and hugged me from behind. "Actually, I also have a selfish motive. I want you to take some rest during this time. You could spend it thinking about our wedding plans. When do you plan to get married? He asked me with a smile, yet I'd already brought up marriage many times before. Each time, he complained about losing freedom and brushed it off by saying we'd talk about it later. Every time we have an argument, he uses marriage to coax me back. Sometimes, I feel less like his girlfriend and more like a dog he's leading around by the nose. I didn't say anything. Albert then ruffled my hair as if teasing a dog again. Don't be angry. Can you smile for me? As he spoke, as if deliberately trying to please me. He leaned in to kiss me. Once again, I caught the scent of Marjorie's perfume on him. A wave of nausea hit me. I pushed him away abruptly, wrinkled my nose in disgust, and pulled out a wet wipe to clean my fingers. Albert stood frozen in place. Do you dislike me? I have something to attend to later and need to go out, so I'll go change clothes first. After speaking softly, I turned to head back to my room. Albert wanted to follow me, but I didn't hesitate to close the door and lock it. Fine. Catherine, don't regret it. Albert seemed genuinely angry. After delivering his harsh words, he kicked the door hard and stormed off in a rage. By the time I came out of the room, the living room was empty. In the company group chat, Albert sent a message saying he wanted to treat everyone to a meal and asked who would join. Everyone remained silent. Only Marjorie sent 3 joyful emojis in a row. I knew Albert was deliberately trying to provoke me. This kind of thing has happened many times. And it's always the same. Other colleagues are unwilling to participate. Only Marjorie shows a positive attitude. In the past, I would have been jealous and followed along, only to be mocked by them. Now, I can't be bothered. I changed my clothes, went to see the house I wanted to rent, and paid the rent directly after confirming everything was fine. I then contacted an agent to entrust them with selling my current house. Although I bought this house and personally handled all the renovations from start to finish, I had originally signed the property deed under Albert's name. At that time, Albert and I had very little money combined to give Albert a sense of security. I still used all my savings to buy this house. Now that the company has grown to its current scale, I suppose this house is no longer something Albert would care about. The agent told me that if the house is sold, Albert needs to be present. If he doesn't have time, a power of attorney must be signed. I had no choice but to message him again. But when I sent it, a red exclamation mark appeared in the chat window. He had blocked me. It was always like this before. When things escalated to nearly irreconcilable levels, Albert would angrily block me. Worried about his safety, I'd sometimes borrow someone else's phone and humbly call him, begging to be added back. And on the other end of the line, he'd condescendingly ask if I'd realized my mistakes. Looking back now, the insincere words I used to placate him were truly countless. After some thought, I decided to give him a call. Come back tonight. There's something I need to discuss with you. What is it? I'm very busy, Albert replied with an icy tone. I pursed my lips. Let's talk about it when we get back. Albert sneered coldly. You push me away when you want, and now you expect me to just come back when you say so. Catherine, do I owe you something? Is this really how you apologize to me? Have I been too nice to you lately, making you forget how to properly apologize? Listening to his mocking tone, I lowered my voice as usual. I'm sorry, I was wrong, after all. I've already apologized against my conscience so many times. What's one more? Besides, this time the apology is being exchanged for an apartment, even though the apartment is mine. If Albert really wants to make trouble and refuses to sign, I won't be able to sell it. Even with proof of investment, we'd still have to go to court. Albert can afford to make a scene, but I can't. Sure enough, after hearing my apology, Albert's tone became noticeably more cheerful as he magnanimously said, just wait. With that, he hung up the phone directly. I remained calm inside and listed the house on the website, setting a significantly lower price to sell it as soon as possible. After completing all this, I contacted a friend and signed the contract. My friend was extremely excited, repeatedly asking if I was dreaming, and even went out of their way to host a celebration dinner for me. I originally planned to head home early, but then I thought, Albert probably wouldn't be back anytime soon, and there wasn't much to do at home anyway. So I agreed. After 3 rounds of drinks, I heard a familiar voice coming from the neighboring private room when I went to the restroom. I instinctively stopped in my tracks. Through the slightly ajar door, I saw Marjorie nestled in Albert's arms. Whatever they said made Albert's previously cold face break into a smile. Seizing the moment, Marjorie quickly lowered her head and planted a kiss on his lips. Albert stood frozen for a moment, yet showed no intention of pushing her away. Mr. Albert, when did you break up with Catherine? I can't wait any longer to be with you. Do you know how heartbroken I feel every day seeing you with her? Do you still prefer Catherine more? Marjorie said with grievance. Albert moved his lips as if wanting to say something. In the end, he hugged Marjorie back, gently patting her back as if comforting a child. How could she ever compare to you in my heart? It's just that the company has grown now, and if I break up with her to be with you, I'm afraid people will talk. Which might not be good for you. Wait a little longer, it won't take too long. So that's how it is. I knew Mr. Albert loved me the most. The intimate way they nestled together looked exactly like a couple. I scoffed and didn't watch any longer. Back in the private room, after a few more drinks, everyone reminisced about the past until the early hours of the morning when the gathering finally ended, as we entered the underground parking garage. A friend suddenly pulled me in front of a top-of-the-line Porsche and asked if I liked it. I nodded in confusion, thinking it was the new car she just bought. I was about to compliment her when my friend suddenly shoved a car key into my hand. It's a gift for you, she winked at me. You've been driving that car for so many years. It's about time you got a new one. Perfect timing to upgrade. I was about to refuse when she cut me off, as if already knowing what I'd say. I heard Albert gave cars to the new hires at your company. If someone with her terrible skills can drive a luxury car, you certainly shouldn't settle for less. Speaking of which, I've seen what that new hire of yours has produced. Every piece has a completely different style, clearly plagiarized. No idea how she even kept her job. Perhaps because of the alcohol. My friend held nothing back, relentlessly venting to me about Marjorie. I remained silent without speaking. She was right. Those things were all done by me and other colleagues in our team, almost every time. Just as we were about to finish, Albert would demand to hand it over to Marjorie. As a result, Marjorie's style always ended up being different. Even friends outside the company could see the truth of the matter. But somehow Albert just couldn't understand. I wanted to decline again, but my friend pretended to be angry and said, "This isn't a gift for you, it'll be deducted from your future salary." Don't let my goodwill go to waste. I chuckled helplessly. If this car's price were really to be deducted from my salary, it would take me several years to pay it off. Knowing it was my friend's excuse, I didn't refuse again and thanked her. After chatting a bit more with my friend, we both called for designated drivers and went our separate ways home. I thought Albert wouldn't be back at this hour, but when I opened the door, I saw Albert already sitting on the sofa in the living room. "Where have you been? Didn't we agree to meet? Do you know how long I've been waiting?" As soon as he entered, Albert asked me angrily. I was somewhat surprised. Usually, when he goes out to meet Marjorie, he doesn't come back until 3 or 4 in the morning. Coming back this early is really unusual, yet at this thought, the image of him embracing Marjorie in the hotel room flashed before my eyes again. I couldn't help feeling a wave of nausea. "Went out to eat with friends," I said flatly. Walking into the living room and pulling the power of attorney from my bag, after just 2 steps, Albert suddenly stopped me, frowning. "You've been drinking too. Didn't I tell you not to drink when I'm not around?" I couldn't help but scoff. What he meant was, I could only drink when helping him with business entertaining. I remained silent. Albert seemed to have thought of something and suddenly smiled, looking rather pleased with himself. "You're still upset about me going out with Marjorie, aren't you? If you didn't want me to have dinner alone with her, you could have just said so. Was it really necessary to drink this much? You're overthinking it. My drinking has nothing to do with you too." I steadied myself on the stool and handed him the property sale agreement. "Take a look at this." Seeing the offered item, Albert raised an eyebrow, his tone tinged with smugness. "What's this? A written guarantee?" "Let me tell you up front, it's too late to apologize now. I'm still furious with you over what happened this afternoon. Don't think such a petty trick will make me forgive you." Looking at his smug expression, I found it amusing inside. Indeed, back when I frequently angered him and he refused to forgive me no matter what, I handwrote a letter of guarantee to win his favor. Now that I think about it, while he certainly had his faults, back then, it was I who willingly handed over my self-respect for him to trample upon. Fortunately, it won't happen again. It's not a guarantee, but a surprise, I said calmly. Hearing this, Albert raised an eyebrow and was about to open it when his phone rang. His dark eyes lit up slightly when he saw the caller ID. "Hold on a second, I need to take this call." With that, Albert raised his hand and answered. "Mr. Albert, I just accidentally hit someone with my car. I don't know what to do, I'm so scared right now." Marjorie's aggrieved voice came through the receiver. Albert's face grew visibly more anxious. "Send me your location, I'm coming over now." With that, he stood up to leave, showing no further intention of acknowledging me. I stepped in front of him in 2 strides, handing the power of attorney directly to him. Keeping it brief, "Handle my matter first," I spoke first, and this document needs signing. It's quite urgent. Albert paused for a moment, glanced up at me, and sighed. Catherine, could you show a little empathy? Her situation is more pressing than yours. Your current jealous behavior is really beneath you. I find it quite amusing. I'm not presentable, but Marjorie's drunk driving look, but I couldn't be bothered to argue with him. So I just kept holding the power of attorney out toward him, making no move to take it back. Albert said nothing more and opened the file, but before he could read it, screams from Marjorie came through the phone again. Ah, how could you hit someone, Mr. Albert? Don't worry, I'll be right there. Though he told Marjorie not to worry, Albert was visibly more anxious than she was. He didn't even glance at the content, hastily flipping to the last page, scribbled his signature, and then strode off, ready to leave. Watching his flustered retreat, I couldn't hold back any longer and asked, aren't you going to see what you just signed? What's there to see? The surprises you can bring are just a few minor contracts at best. As long as you're sure there's no issue with the contract terms, that's all that matters. With that, he walked out the door without looking back. I just found it amusing. In the past, to make him happy, I would secretly go behind his back to negotiate deals. At first, he would be delighted. But as the company grew, he began to look down on these small businesses that had struggled their way up just like we had. Before signing any contract, I would worry about oversights and had to repeatedly check the contract terms several times. Now, just because of worrying about Marjorie, he didn't even know what he was signing. But it's just as well it saved a lot of trouble. That night Albert didn't return. Actually, Marjorie sent me a lot of messages. Catherine, I know you saw everything outside the private room, but you should also know that Albert favors me in his heart. He would rush to me with just one phone call. You'd better back out early, or else it will be embarrassing for everyone. I couldn't help but scoff. It seems Marjorie has shown her true colors. I know full well that even if I send the chat records to Albert, it would be useless. He dotes on Marjorie, even if he sees the provocation. He'd only think I'm trying to drive a wedge between them, but I'm not magnanimous enough to turn a blind eye to her repeated provocations. Congratulations, but if one day Albert gets tired of you, remember to gracefully bow out yourself. I know this remark isn't particularly cutting, but once uttered, Marjorie probably felt uncomfortable too. Sure enough, the moment the message was sent, she quieted down. I went to bed early, and at dawn, I sent the power of attorney signed by Albert to the agent. That afternoon, someone came to view the house. The person was very satisfied with the location, layout, and price of the house, but she was skeptical about my urgency to sell it. Such a nice house. Why is it priced so low? Could there be something wrong with it? She was being somewhat cautious. I briefly told her that this was the new house purchased previously, but the engagement with my fiancé had been called off. She expressed understanding. This courtyard and the interior design clearly reflect a man's taste at first glance. It's better to sell it, to avoid being reminded of the past by seeing it. I didn't speak. Albert was very particular about the house. Back then, it took me 3 months and viewing over 100 properties before I finally found this one that satisfied him. Even the decoration was done according to his preferences. Only then did I realize that for all these years, my life had revolved entirely around him. The client was decisive. After viewing the apartment that evening, they immediately agreed to sign the contract with me and scheduled the handover for 2 days later. Coincidentally, my departure was also set for 2 days later. After signing the contract and returning home, the first thing I saw upon entering was a pair of women's high heels placed by the doorway. The pair of house slippers I used to wear often is also missing. Seeing this, I already had an idea in my mind. I tore open a new pair of disposable slippers and walked in. As soon as I entered, I heard Marjorie's voice. Mr. Albert, what you're doing isn't right, let me show you how. As I reached the kitchen doorway, I saw the two standing by the sink, Marjorie with Albert cradled in her arms, guiding his hands in what appeared to be an intimately casual gesture. Marjorie was even wearing my loungewear and slippers, carrying herself with the effortless familiarity of the lady of the house. Albert, dressed in matching attire, showed no discomfort at her proximity. Their ease around each other spoke of shared comfort and warmth. They laughed out loud at something they were talking about. But usually, he would feel very uncomfortable if I got even slightly close to him. He told me he wasn't comfortable with the opposite sex, but now it seems he's just not comfortable with me. I couldn't help but sneer. At that moment, Albert for some reason turned his head and saw me. He froze for a moment, then instinctively pushed Marjorie away lightly, looking somewhat guilty. Why are you back at this time? Hearing this, I couldn't help but find it amusing. So now it's my fault. Sorry, Catherine, I was just teaching Mr. Albert how to wash vegetables. Don't misunderstand." Though she said this, her eyes were filled with smugness and curiosity as she looked at me. As if she couldn't wait to see me break down in jealousy. In the past, I probably would have gotten angry again, had a big fight with Albert, and insisted on kicking Marjorie out, but I'm already used to it, and besides, I'll be leaving soon. The house deal is done, and the deposit is already in my account. I really can't be bothered to care anymore. You guys go ahead with your work. I'm heading to my room first, I said calmly, then stepped toward the bedroom. Marjorie paused for a moment, looking surprised, as if she didn't understand my reaction. Albert had probably already prepared for me to be angry. Seeing me so calm, his tone became somewhat unnatural. He even went so far as to explain to me, which was unprecedented, "Marjorie is celebrating her birthday today and wanted to spend it with us, so I brought her along." In the past, he wouldn't have said this much. She would just roll her eyes at me and sneer coldly, "If you can't stand it, get out." I laughed mockingly in my heart. For a moment, I didn't know whether to laugh that I no longer cared, yet he started explaining to me or to laugh that he couldn't even remember my birthday but had the heart to celebrate Marjorie's, then have a good time. I said quietly and entered the bedroom. Most of my belongings were already packed, with less frequently used items transported to my newly rented apartment. What remained in the room were just some everyday clothes and books. I was considering whether to finish packing today when the door was suddenly pushed open. Marjorie walked in, holding a small piece of cake in her hand. She casually glanced around the room and burst out laughing. "The room looks much emptier than the last time I was here. Seems like you're obediently preparing to quit, huh?" I ignored her. I lowered my head and continued chatting with my friend about moving arrangements on my phone, noticing she was being ignored. Marjorie's face turned a shade paler as she took a few steps toward me. "I'm talking to you. Are you deaf?" I glanced at her and sneered coldly. "Why bother paying so much attention? It's not like you can move in here anyway." A simple sentence. Yet for some reason it struck a nerve. Her expression darkened instantly, and she raised her hand to grab my collar. Before I could react, footsteps suddenly sounded at the door. Marjorie hurled the cake to the ground. She immediately collapsed to the floor with a scream. "Marjorie, what's wrong?" Albert pushed the door open, shoved me aside, and quickly helped her up. I staggered back a few steps, the broken porcelain shards piercing through my slippers and into my heel, where crimson blood quickly welled up from the wound. But Albert didn't seem to notice, only looking heartbrokenly at the white mark left by the scratch on Marjorie's hand. Not even a drop of blood. "I'm sorry, Mr. Albert, I made Catherine angry again. I originally thought that on my birthday, everyone should be able to have cake, so I brought a piece to Catherine, but I didn't expect she wouldn't like it." Marjorie looked at Albert with reddened eyes, appearing utterly at a loss. If I weren't the one involved, even I would probably believe it, yet I never said I didn't like cake. On the contrary, perhaps because I rarely had the chance to eat birthday cake, I actually liked it very much. Every time my birthday comes around, I can't help but mention it. Before, Albert used to tease me, saying that since I love cake so much, what if I end up getting as big as a balloon? But with Marjorie around, Albert clearly forgot about my preferences. He pointed at me angrily and said, "Just because you don't like it, does that mean you can smash plates and push people around? Catherine, I thought you had learned your lesson, but it seems you're still the same as before. Apologize to Marjorie right now, or else, with your jealousy, I don't think I can handle it. Maybe we should just break up." He glared at me with such a fierce demeanor that I couldn't help but find it amusing. I couldn't help but recall the words I overheard outside the private room that day. During the times when our fights were at their worst, he had threatened to break up with me before, but I couldn't bear the thought. Each time, I would immediately try to persuade him, speaking softly, and even once humbly knelt down to beg him, because I believed breaking up wasn't what he truly wanted. It was just his trump card, and also the way out he offered me. It wasn't until later that I came to my senses. He probably had already planned to break up, which is why he kept mentioning it all the time, but it's just as well, since I had already planned to break up too. Even if he hadn't brought it up now, I would have. Seeing that I remained silent, Albert thought I was scared, and his tone softened considerably. "You've been acting mysteriously these past few days, probably preparing for the wedding. I know you don't want to break up either. Now, apologize to Marjorie." Without waiting Albert to finish speaking, I interrupted him calmly. "No need. I agree to break up." Albert's smiling face froze, his expression one of disbelief. "What did you say? Aren't we breaking up?" "I agree," I spoke calmly, I thought agreeing to the divorce would be exactly what he wanted. And he should have been relieved, but surprisingly, there wasn't a trace of happiness in his tone, only shock and anger. "Catherine, are you crazy? You're breaking up with me over such a trivial matter." He stared at me with wide eyes. "I don't understand. Wasn't breaking up what he wanted? Why would he have this attitude when I agreed to him?" Beside them, Marjorie also seemed puzzled and gently tugged his sleeve. "Mr. Albert, it was Catherine who initiated the breakup, so maybe." Before she could finish, Albert angrily snapped, "Shut up. This is between us, you have no say in it." This was probably the first time he had ever spoken so harshly to Marjorie. Marjorie was instantly stunned, her mouth hanging open without a word. Albert seemed to realize his mistake as well, hurriedly lowering his voice and whispering to her, "I'm sorry, that's not what I meant. Please wait outside for me. Our matters shouldn't involve you." Marjorie had reddened eyes, visibly reluctant. But being sharp-minded, she knew better than to provoke Albert now and obediently stepped out. After she left, Albert let out a deep sigh. Just as he was about to speak, his gaze suddenly dropped to the ground, his voice softening. "Your foot is injured. Why didn't you say anything? Let me get a band-aid." As he spoke, he walked toward the nearby bookshelf, but I knew it was just his way of changing the subject. Every time the conversation turned to something he didn't want to hear, he would interrupt by pretending to care about me. In the past, I would always soften, lost in the illusion that he still cared, and just like that, the original topic would quietly fade away, but those conflicts remain unresolved, only to fester in my heart and resurface one day in an even uglier form. "Where are the band-aids? I remember there were some before," Albert muttered to himself while rummaging through the bookshelf. But he seemed to have forgotten that his last visit to my room was 2 years ago. Ever since that time when I had a fever of 40 degrees Celsius and he went on a date with Marjorie, I had moved the first aid kit to a more accessible location. "Catherine, why are so many things missing from your room?" Albert finally noticed something was wrong. I didn't hide it from him. "I sold the house. I've already found a buyer. The handover is in 2 days. You should arrange to move your things out tomorrow too." Albert was slightly stunned and about to lose his temper. Then, as if suddenly realizing something, he laughed abruptly. "Stop joking. This house has my share too, without my signature and permission. How could you possibly sell it?" "All right, Catherine, I know you're angry. I'll have Marjorie leave now. Just stop making a scene, okay?" He still didn't believe what I said. I picked up the sales contract from the table and handed it to him. "There's an agency contract for you at the very bottom. The agent said this authorization is sufficient. Oh, by the way, the authorization was signed on the day Marjorie was drunk driving. You probably remember, but if not, it's still legally valid." Albert took the contract, and when he flipped to the last page, his body suddenly stiffened. After a half-second pause, he suddenly screamed at me hysterically. "Who allowed you to sell the house without my permission?" I scoffed. "I won't take a single penny from the company, but since I paid for this apartment in full initially, it's only reasonable that I decide what to do with it. Besides, if I remember correctly, you recently bought Marjorie a new house in the suburbs. It's not like you're homeless, you can always move in there. By all accounts, there's nothing wrong with me selling the house." Albert was speechless, his face pale. I thought he would then smoothly agree to the breakup, but who knew? He forced himself to calm down and quietly explained to me, "That house was meant to be my gift to you, not to Marjorie. Putting her name on it was just to make her feel a sense of belonging. If it bothers you, I can remove her name another day." "All right, after all the years we've shared, how could we just break up so easily?" "Catherine, I know you're angry right now. Please calm down first. Let's talk about this tomorrow." With that, he turned and walked away without another word. It has always been like this. Every time we reach an irreconcilable point, he would act as if he still loved me, telling me to calm down and think things through. Each time, I would first persuade myself to trust him, not to act impulsively. Then take the initiative to break the ice, apologize to him, and reconcile. At the very beginning, I truly loved him. Later, I realized his heart was no longer with me, yet I couldn't bear to let go of all these years of emotions, always telling myself that enduring a little hardship would make things better once we got past this conflict. But after all this time, nothing has improved. It was all just my wishful thinking. He probably thought I would still be at his mercy like before. But he was wrong. This relationship had long been worn away by repeated disappointments. After Albert left, I cleaned up the broken porcelain pieces on the floor and tended to my wounds. By the time I went out again, Albert and Marjorie had already left. The leftovers were still on the table, and a half-burnt candle lay on the floor. I've always been the one to handle the household chores, never willing to let Albert lift a finger. Over time, he grew accustomed to it. I was too lazy to clean. Thinking that since the place would need tidying up before moving out anyway, I decided to wait until the next day to hire a cleaner and tackle everything together. After washing up, I went straight to bed. However, the next morning when I stepped out of my room, I saw that the place had already been cleaned. Albert was standing in the kitchen, busy with something. I was just about to go and wake you up. Albert had an apron tied around his waist for the first time in forever. Smiling as he looked at me, his calm demeanor as if nothing had happened yesterday. I've already cleaned the house, even disinfected it specially. In the past, I would have pretended not to see the dirty water left from mopping or the streaked glass, giving him a satisfied praise and enough emotional support. But now, I let out a scoff and lightly uttered an "oh." Albert seemed somewhat disappointed by my indifferent mood, yet he quickly smiled again and walked out carrying 2 breakfast plates. I just made these, give them a try. I glanced over 2 cheeseburgers. It looks quite presentable, to be honest. This should be Albert's first breakfast made for me, which is quite touching. But he seems to have forgotten. I'm allergic to cheese. Albert's expression changed slightly as he hurriedly said, "I'll go remake it. Stop wasting your time on such futile efforts. A peaceful breakup is better for both of us." During the annual dinner gathering, he could clearly remember that Marjorie doesn't like lamb, ginger, or garlic, yet he forgot about the time I accidentally ate cheese and had such a severe allergic reaction that I ended up in the hospital. Love and its absence are painfully obvious, but Albert didn't seem to think so. He frowned with some irritation. "Couples shouldn't hold grudges overnight. Catherine, I've already swallowed my pride to do these things. Why must you still be so picky? And I'm busy with company affairs every day. Isn't it normal to misremember things?" I nodded. "Then it's also normal for us to break up." Albert finally lost his temper, slamming the dinner plate heavily onto the table with a loud crash. He furrowed his brows and glared at me, finally losing all patience before slamming the door and leaving. This marked the beginning of our Cold War. I sighed helplessly and eventually hired a cleaner to help tidy up, while also packing Albert's belongings to mail them to his suburban address. Normally, I would help him pack for business trips, so completing these tasks didn't take much time. The house was successfully handed over at the agreed time. Albert seemed to finally realize that my breakup this time wasn't an empty threat. He sent me a text mocking me, and when he got no response, he started frequently posting photos of himself with Marjorie on social media. I've been busy with onboarding matters lately, and when I finally checked my phone, I found several unread messages from my special notifications. It was then that I realized he had posted today about going to the wildlife park with Marjorie. Tomorrow he and Marjorie will go for a hot air balloon ride. The day after tomorrow, the company's performance was good again, and he took Marjorie to Bali for a holiday as a reward. When filming, they even deliberately showed off their couple's rings on their middle fingers. Caption: "The loved ones are always presumptuous, but no one knows that it's the children who don't cry who should be given candy even more." I know he's deliberately trying to provoke me. He's waiting for me to get jealous, to get angry, to beg him to come back. Then he arrogantly laid out a series of conditions for me as if he were granting me a favor, but I don't really care anymore. I was about to exit the interface when I accidentally liked one of the moments, worried it might cause unnecessary trouble. I immediately unliked it and then calmly removed his moments from my special attention list. I refocused on my work. Due to my arrival, some projects at my friend's company have been increasingly refined. The business executive straightened up with pride as he discussed a collaborative project with profits reaching hundreds of millions. That day, as my friend and I were preparing to attend a meeting to discuss a project contract, Albert unexpectedly took the initiative to send me a message for the first time ever. "It's a picture." I clicked on it, puzzled. What immediately caught my eye was a Marjorie-named pregnancy test report. "How does it feel?" The next second, Albert sent a message. I didn't reply. Albert immediately added, "Just kidding, this report is fake. But if you search your heart, when you saw this pregnancy report, didn't you really feel jealous? Can you truly accept Marjorie carrying my child?" I find it quite amusing, but I hadn't noticed it before. Only now, after he finished speaking, did I realize, in the past, whenever I saw him with other girls, I couldn't help but feel overwhelmingly jealous. Out of anger, my face would turn red, and my heartbeat would quicken. But now, as I glanced at my reflection in the mirror, my expression was composed, as calm as ever. Even the heart rate on my wristband reminds me that I've completely come to terms with the fact that Albert belongs to someone else. I didn't want to reply to him anymore, but remembering Marjorie's previous provocation, I couldn't be bothered to stir up more trouble, so I kindly informed him, "Since you already have a new girlfriend, let's not discuss topics that lack boundaries. It could easily be misunderstood by your new girlfriend." After sending the message, Albert's chat window displayed typing on and off for several minutes. Finally, he replied, "Catherine, just keep pretending. I'll see how long you can keep this act up. If you don't still love me, why do you pay so much attention to me? Don't think I don't know you've been stalking me and even secretly liked my posts. I find it quite amusing." Before, Albert never paid attention to me or noticed these details. It seems that during his time with Marjorie, he has truly changed. The man who didn't change in 9 years with me has changed for Marjorie. Before I could speak, Albert continued, "During this time, nothing happened between me and Marjorie. She was willing to cooperate with me in all this, just so we could get back together. For her sake, I'll give you one last chance." I let out a faint laugh. "No need," then hung up the phone. He might still think I'd turn back because of his provocations. But it's okay. With time, he'll understand that I truly meant to break up with him. I also know full well that his attempts to keep me now aren't because he still loves me, but simply because he's worried about gossip spreading after our breakup. Flirting with Marjorie is one thing. It was another matter entirely that Marjorie had broken up with me. I ignored him and continued to focus on my own career. That evening, my friend and I successfully negotiated the cooperative project. My friend was extremely pleased and took me to meet several other bosses in the same industry. Upon meeting, my friend directly introduced me as her business partner. The group showed me great respect, and I felt incredibly flattered. Although I had previously accompanied Albert to meet bosses in the same circle, Albert portrayed me more as an inexperienced employee rather than his business partner. Over time, those bosses stopped respecting me and sometimes even ordered me around to run errands or buy things. Yet, I couldn't blame him for it. Albert, though he was at fault, wasn't it the old me who indulged him. After several rounds of drinks, we felt like we should have met sooner, and our conversation became increasingly congenial. At some point in the conversation, one of the female bosses quietly asked me, "Catherine, have you offended someone? I just discovered you've been added to our industry's blacklist." Afraid I wouldn't believe her, she even showed me the record. This is insider information within their industry. To avoid pitfalls, the upper echelons circulate a blacklist of individuals with poor conduct or prior offenses. My name and photo were prominently featured on that list. The reason given was refusal to comply with management, inability to cooperate with colleagues, strong jealousy, and poor character. I didn't need to think hard to guess whose handiwork this was. Seeing my silence, the female boss said without hesitation, "Sister, I know you're not that kind of person. Someone must be trying to frame you. Don't worry, I'll remove your name right now." With that, she decisively deleted my information. Seeing this, I thanked her, but couldn't help but smile bitterly inside. It's good that I have friends to help now. But I can't imagine how an ordinary job seeker would navigate their path forward once they're on this list. Not that this blacklist is entirely a bad thing. With this list, many companies can indeed avoid taking numerous wrong paths. However, no company will invest effort in verifying the authenticity of this blacklist. Decisions will simply be made based on stereotypes. Those who are wronged will only become increasingly frustrated after repeated blows. Those outstanding individuals will inevitably lose the courage to forge ahead fearlessly. What should they do then? Seeing we were still chatting, our drunken friend slung his arms over our shoulders and led us back, pulling us to continue drinking. When the gathering ended, my friend and I saw them all off into their cars. My friend went aside to call his girlfriend, while I stood at the hotel entrance waiting for the designated driver to pick us up. I didn't have to wait long before hearing a voice behind me. "Oh, Catherine, what are you doing here?" I turned around and saw Marjorie and Albert not far away. Marjorie was holding Albert's arm, their bodies so close together they looked like a couple deeply in love. Seeing me, Marjorie let out a mocking laugh and lowered her head to speak to Albert. "Mr. Albert, I see. It seems Catherine is here for you. Then you two talk first. I'll step aside for a moment." With that, she made a move to leave, but I could tell she had no intention of actually going anywhere. Sure enough, Albert pulled her into an embrace, then deliberately pressed closer to Marjorie's chest, flaunting their intimacy in front of me. "You're not an outsider. Why avoid us?" After saying this, Albert even shot me a smug glance. "Didn't you say you didn't want the opportunity anymore? Then why are you still here?" but I'm telling you, it's already too late now, Catherine. You've missed your chance." His attitude was domineering, completely different from the considerate demeanor he showed in front of Marjorie. I knew he had misunderstood. In a calm voice, she explained, "I came here to eat with a friend, and we're about to leave." Came here to eat with a friend. Repeating this sentence, Marjorie suddenly burst into laughter. "Sorry, Catherine, I really couldn't help it. I didn't expect that even without a job, you'd be willing to splurge on a meal at such a fancy hotel with friends." I could tell her words were laced with sarcasm, implying I was lying and pretending to be something I'm not. "Catherine, I really didn't think you'd become like this." Albert's gaze at me also carried a hint of disgust. Seeing this, I didn't feel like explaining anymore, since he doesn't believe me anyway. Explaining would be useless, just a waste of breath. Seeing me silent, Albert mistook it for a guilty conscience. He became even more convinced that Marjorie was right. He sneered, "After leaving me, you must have realized how hard it is. Do you regret it now?" I find it amusing. It seems he still doesn't know I've already joined my friend's company. Well, he was never interested in my whereabouts to begin with. It's only natural not to keep up after a breakup. He was about to say something, then sighed deeply with emotion. "Originally, I didn't want to forgive you, but after all, we were once a couple. It's not like I have no feelings for you at all, and you even took the initiative to come all this way. I'll give you one more chance. Make it count." Hearing this, I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow and glance at Marjorie. She had clearly just learned about Albert's decision, and for a moment, her face showed panic, but she didn't dare say anything, struggling for a long time before stammering, "Mr. Albert, you need to think this through carefully. Going back to your ex is never a good idea." I nearly laughed out loud. It seems the two of them haven't reached an agreement on this matter. Albert ignored Marjorie, sneered, and continued speaking to me. "Did you hear that, Catherine? Actually, many friends have been advising me not to reconcile with you, telling me to cut my losses in time. They all think you're no longer worthy of me. Do you know how many people urged me to break up with you every day before, yet, out of consideration for our relationship, I kept tolerating you again and again. I really don't know what got into you or whose words you believed, that you would take the initiative to break up with me. Everyone knows how happy you are, only you yourself don't appreciate it at all." Albert continued to chatter on incessantly. Yes, his current status is far above mine, so he has repeatedly emphasized to me that our relationship is unequal. He stays with me out of consideration for our long-standing past affection. I used to take his words as playful banter between us, until I later realized he was serious. In his eyes, there was no reason for us to break up. It was about interests, old sentiments, charity, everything but love. I was just about to say something when my friend's voice came from the side. "Catherine, who are these two?" Seeing my friend approach, I finally felt relieved. After a moment's thought, I replied, "Former colleagues. We happened to run into each other previously. Albert took me out and didn't want to introduce me as his girlfriend, often saying I was his colleague. I thought he would be pleased, but to my surprise, upon hearing that, his expression darkened even further. I ignored him and continued to introduce myself to the two. "This is my friend. I told you, I'm here to eat with a friend." But for some reason, he looked very upset. Marjorie, who was standing nearby, was the first to react, smiling as she asked me, "I didn't expect that, Catherine. You actually have a friend who invited you to eat here. Looks like your friend is quite wealthy. What do they do for a living? Where do they work?" My friend frowned and whispered to me, "Why do I smell a hint of green tea as soon as you open your mouth?" I chuckled faintly. "It's fine, you'll get used to it." My friend didn't say much, but she could also tell that Marjorie had ill intentions. She said casually, "I run a small business, so I wouldn't say I'm rich." Seeing this, Marjorie became even more pleased, scoffing. Her eyes filled with disdain as she looked at her friend. "Business is tough these days, so it must be quite hard. Even if you're earning blood money, you shouldn't squander it like that." My friend quickly noticed something off in her words and didn't respond to her, instead whispering to me, "What's going on? Do you two have some bad blood?" I didn't hide it from him anymore, speaking in a voice only the two of us could hear. "The person next to her is my ex-boyfriend, and also her current girlfriend." My friend already knew about how I had struggled to start a business with Albert, and after I came to her, I didn't hide from her the details of my breakup with Albert or the reasons behind it. My friend scoffed, "You should have said so earlier." Then he looked at Marjorie and smiled. "From what you're saying, you're not earning your money through hard work. What kind of job do you do?" She doesn't look like someone successful with that demeanor. She can't be making money off men. Can you? Marjorie was annoyed and wanted to make a move, but Albert stopped her. Stop it, Catherine, I don't have the energy to fool around with you anymore. I know what you're concerned about, I promise you. As long as you're willing to reconcile, I'll reinstate your position in the company and give you 10% of the shares. You should be satisfied with that, right? 10%. Before I could think further, my friend burst out laughing first. Sorry, I've already poached her to our company and offered her 40% of the shares. Albert's face momentarily turned green, but then, for some unknown reason, his gaze turned cold as he looked at me. Catherine, think carefully. The strength of companies varies. This number alone doesn't mean much. It was clear he was implying that his friend's company was far less developed than his own, initially. His friend's company was indeed somewhat behind his, but the key deficiency was in technology. The technology has now been gradually refined, even securing projects worth hundreds of millions, and the company's strength has surpassed Albert's by a notch. What's more, I don't believe his company can continue to improve under the current trends. On the contrary, his management style and the extent of his favoritism toward Marjorie make me feel that problems will inevitably arise sooner or later. But I can't be bothered to say any of this. It's not like he'd listen even if I did. His friend didn't bother to argue with him either. Has the designated driver arrived? She asked me nonchalantly, ignoring Albert, just as I was about to check the order. A person in a designated driver's uniform quickly ran over and asked me, Boss, I'm the designated driver you hired. Where's the car? My car is too flashy, let's take yours, my friend said, nodding his chin at me, without much thought. I pulled out my car keys and handed them to the designated driver. In less than 2 minutes, she awkwardly drove the high-end Porsche to a stop in front of us. Boss, this car is really cool, it must be expensive, I reacted, turning my head to look. Marjorie stared at the car with gleaming eyes. Albert seemed lost in thought, his expression not looking too good either. My friend gave me a smug smile and replied, It's not expensive, just over 2 million, a reward from the company, by the way. My sister is still looking for a driver. I think you're a good fit. Are you interested in working for 20,000 a month? The designated driver was flattered and quickly said, Really, of course, if you don't believe me. I can send you the contract now, okay. I promise to do a good job. My friend and the designated driver were chatting animatedly. Meanwhile, Albert shot me a cold glare, turned, and walked away, and Marjorie quickly followed him. My friend and the designated driver had already signed the contract. I was a bit surprised. You actually signed it. Of course, it was always the plan. You're our technical backbone. In the future, when we go out for networking, there will inevitably be drinking, and we can't always rely on designated drivers. Isn't that salary a bit too high? This price is already far above market value. At Albert's, my salary was only 15,000. My friend seemed to know I would ask that, and patted my shoulder. No, it's not high, because when you're drunk, the driver is the one who holds your life in their hands. Seeing that she had made up her mind, I didn't try to persuade her further. For the next period, we fully focused on the project. When I occasionally had some free time, I noticed that Albert, who had been frequently posting updates, had become quiet, and even Marjorie had quieted down considerably, no longer provoking me. I guessed it was due to the impact of our last encounter with friends. I also thought that after this incident, Albert would give up and completely break ties with me. But who knew, that day, as we were busy wrapping up the project, my friend suddenly approached me and mysteriously said, Albert just called me. Before I could ask more, my friend said seriously, he should be looking for you soon. Whatever choice you make, I'll support you. So don't have any worries. Of course, I still hope you won't be swayed. After saying these ambiguous words, my friend left. I was completely confused. However, without giving it much thought, I turned my attention back to work. It wasn't until noon that I received Albert's call. When the call connected, he wasn't as aggressive as usual, but instead uncharacteristically silent, so quiet that I even thought the other end had hung up, yet a glance at the screen showed it hadn't. Catherine, stop messing around. Can we make up? After a long pause, Albert's slightly hoarse voice came from the other side. I find it quite amusing. Does he still think I'm just messing around? I didn't speak, and Albert said again, I just called your friend. She said that she also wanted you to start a business with her. But you still resolutely chose me. I never realized how many sacrifices you made for me. I admit, ever since Marjorie joined the company, I've neglected you a lot, but we've been together for 10 years and we're already talking about marriage. Does our love have to end just because of these 10 months? His voice choked up, as if he couldn't speak. I paused, thinking of the past. Over the past decade, although our journey has been uneventful, we have always relied on each other. When faced with difficulties, we would encourage each other. When encountering thorns, we would endure the pain and walk through them side by side. Once, in an effort to secure an investment, I was forced to drink 3 large bottles of Baijiu. By the end, I could barely walk straight. Just as I was about to pass out, I saw Albert crying, holding me up with one hand while struggling to dial 120 with the other. When I woke up in the hospital, I saw how exhausted he looked and realized he had stayed by my side without sleep for 2 full days and nights. That time, I was hospitalized for 7 consecutive days. He had to juggle company matters while tirelessly taking care of me. Back then, he must have truly loved me, right? My memories were pulled back, and just as I was about to speak, I heard Marjorie's voice suddenly from the other end of the line. "Catherine, please forgive Mr. Albert. I'm so sorry for the misunderstanding these past few days, but I truly had no other intentions. If you mind, I'll resign tomorrow and never appear before you again." This time, Albert didn't stop her again, as if he had tacitly agreed with her words. My mood was complicated for a moment. These words sounded like the tragic grandeur of a relationship being forcibly torn apart. I felt more like the third party intervening in their relationship. So what if we break up? So what if I quit after that? Marjorie became his unattainable first love. Under the catalysis and diffusion of time, their feelings would only become more beautiful, and then at some point, they would erupt, more intensely than now. I scoffed, but still said, "I can agree, but on one condition." "Speak." Listening to Albert's tone, which sounded like he was bravely cutting off his own wrist, I subtly curved the corner of my lips. "You give me half of the company's shares, and half of the assets under your name." I knew very well that Albert would not agree. He knew very well that the shares and property were the reason Marjorie was willing to be with him. Sure enough, Albert remained silent for nearly 5 minutes. Finally, Marjorie couldn't hold back any longer and said indignantly, "Catherine, your condition is too much. Do you know how difficult it was for Mr. Albert to build the company to this extent on his own? You think you can just talk your way into taking half the company's assets? Don't you think that's a bit excessive?" "I can't even be bothered to expose her intentions," calmly replying to the other side. "Albert, we're both adults. We should understand that you can't gain something without losing something. You want to smoothly get what you desire while losing nothing. Why should such good fortune fall to you alone? Think carefully about how to choose. I'll give you 3 days to decide." With that, I hung up the phone directly. I thought Albert would give up. To my surprise, by evening, I received another call from him. He said half was too much and asked if he could have 20% instead. I told him directly, half means half, not a penny less, and if you can't deliver, don't call me again. But this whole thing left me feeling a bit puzzled. Albert seems genuinely unwilling to break up with me. But why? Wasn't he the one who wanted to break up in the first place? That day at the hotel, he said he was worried about what others might think. But I was the one who initiated the breakup, and this reason alone shouldn't have driven him to go this far. But I didn't dwell on it. Soon, 3 days passed. Albert still hadn't contacted me. The project's closing work is gradually being completed. On the day of the successful acceptance, my friends specially treated us to a celebration banquet. At the banquet, everyone forgot the monotony of work and fully let themselves go. By the time I got home, it was already past midnight. I had just finished washing up and was drifting off to sleep when I received a call from Albert. Disturbed from my peaceful sleep, I felt somewhat annoyed and wanted to hang up the phone. After drinking, my vision became blurry, and I accidentally pressed the answer button. "Hello, are you Mr. Lin's girlfriend?" "Mr. Lin has had too much to drink here and refuses to go home. We found your number in his phone, and we're worried something might happen. Could you come pick him up?" I sobered up a little. "Sorry, please find someone else, Mr. Lin insisted that you must be the one to pick him up. He also said that if anything happens to him and you don't come, you'll be the first to blame," the voice on the other end urged anxiously. I was amused and sat up. "Then send me the location." The person on the other end seemed delighted by my response. After hanging up, they immediately added my contact and sent a location pin. I glanced at it. I immediately dialed the emergency number. After explaining the situation and location to the dispatcher, I muted my phone and fell asleep. When I woke up again, I found Albert had called me over a dozen times and sent dozens of messages. From initially being shocked that I had actually called the police, to later becoming furious and calling me cold-blooded, saying I only cared about profit and had no feelings, until finally, he broke down and asked why I was treating him this way. He just made a small mistake that anyone could have made, and it wasn't a substantial betrayal of me. Why should I be so heartless as to go to such extremes? Before I could finish reading the message, his call came through again. I initially wanted to reject it, but after some thought, even if I reject it now, since the matter hasn't been clarified, he would probably keep bothering me. Thinking this, I pressed the answer button. His slightly hoarse voice came through, still tinged with low spirits. Catherine, I've figured it out. I admit you've won. I can't live without you. Half of the shares are yours, and half of my assets under my name will also be yours. Come back. I raised an eyebrow and glanced at the time. It had already been 5 days. Sorry, but the 3-day deadline has passed. I've changed my mind, Catherine. Albert was about to say something when he started coughing violently in agitation. After what seemed like an eternity, the coughing gradually subsided. His voice was hoarse with emotion. How did you end up like this? I smiled faintly without responding. Back then, he used to do the same frequently, holding me past deadlines, deducting my bonuses, wages, and handing over my proposals to Marjorie. Now, I'm merely treating him the way he once treated me. Indeed, one doesn't know the pain until the needle pricks their own skin. He seemed to understand my intention. As if finally realizing that my goal wasn't his wealth, he let out a self-mocking cold laugh. Catherine, I'm starting to not recognize you anymore. After speaking, he began coughing violently again, his breathing heavy and labored, sounding extremely painful. I wanted to ask him what was wrong, but then I thought it might make him misunderstand it as concern. After some consideration, I still didn't say anything, yet it seemed he knew what I was thinking, as he spoke as if to himself. I have a fever, Catherine. I'm now in our house. I bought it back not long ago. I wonder if you were as sad as I am now when you had a fever and I wasn't there. I didn't answer, and he continued, all the paintings you drew for me are gone. I've searched the entire house and can't find them. Catherine, did you put it away, or did you throw it away? He kept chattering like a child. His voice trembled, the tone gradually became more aggrieved. There was a rustling sound from the other side, probably him rummaging through drawers. I sighed. I've burned them all. Albert paused briefly, then burst into laughter. Laughing turned into silence, and then came the sound of soft sobs from the other side. The room is now filled with memories of our life together, but I can't find a single trace of the life we once shared. How could you be so heartless? Selling the house just like that, cleaning it so thoroughly, leaving so abruptly. What am I supposed to do? I've already removed Marjorie's name from the deed of the house in the suburbs. I wanted to make amends. Why won't you even give me the chance to make things right? The crying grew louder. His voice had already started to become hoarse. In the past, I would have felt heartbroken long ago. I couldn't bear to see him sad or crying. But now I know very well that he isn't crying because he realizes his mistake. Just because I was sick, my emotions became more fragile. If given another chance, he might still choose to walk the same path as before. Stop pushing yourself. Let Marjorie take you to the hospital. I have to go to work, so I'm hanging up now. After saying that, I ignored him and hung up the phone. When I decided to let go, I had no intention of looking back. Whether he is doing well or not now has nothing to do with me anymore. I got up, washed up, drove to the company, and as soon as I arrived at the entrance, I noticed the lively atmosphere inside, filled with joy and celebration. Before I could even ask, seeing me approach, my friend excitedly grabbed my hand and said with great enthusiasm, our previous project has already gone live for the client, achieving 80 million views within just 2 hours. They're extremely satisfied and have decided to sign a long-term contract with us. This client is quite renowned in the industry. Securing their long-term project is truly an incredible achievement. That same month, the boss gave the entire project team a raise, boosting everyone's motivation even further. With my share of the bonus and the money from selling my previous home, I bought another new apartment here. This house was chosen according to my preferences, located far from the city center, adjacent to a vast lake, with stunningly beautiful scenery visible from the windows. I took some time out again to design the house's renovation plans. The previous house was entirely designed by me. At that time, Albert didn't like the designs made by others. Coincidentally, I understood his preferences, so I enrolled in a 2-month course to learn how to draw renovation blueprints. Once again, under Albert's nitpicking, edits were made back and forth, leaving behind the current look of that house. Without boasting, that house really suited Albert's taste, so when he told me he bought that house that day, I didn't think it was out of nostalgia. It felt more like it was because of comfort. I also designed a comfortable decor style for myself, and after completing the drawings, I lent them to a reliable construction team. Sometimes after work, I would personally go to the house to check on the progress and lend a hand. After running around for several days, my physical strength gave out, and one day while going upstairs, I accidentally fell and injured my leg. After resting for a few days, I could only reduce the frequency. A friend advised me to rest, and she helped oversee the construction, but I still looked forward to seeing how the house would look after the renovation. That day, I couldn't resist going to the new house after work. As soon as I arrived at the underground parking lot, I saw a familiar figure standing by the car. Albert was standing in front of the car wearing a trench coat and a mask, looking much more haggard than before, with faint dark circles under his eyes. My footsteps paused for a moment before I continued walking forward. "What are you doing here?" I'm not surprised he could find this place. His social circle isn't small, and it wouldn't take much effort for him to find out about something. It's just that before he couldn't be bothered to spend any effort on me. "I have something to talk to you about." His voice had a somewhat gravelly quality, as if he hadn't fully recovered from an illness. "Let's talk in the car. I heard you bought a new house. I'll go take a look too and help you check it out." "No need, let's just talk here." I refused his kind offer. It was as if he had already guessed I would say that. He didn't lose control of his emotions again. Instead, a hint of sadness appeared in his eyes as he handed me the document. "This is your compensation. I admit that I have owed you a lot over the past 10 years, whether it was the company or the family. You contributed a lot, but I didn't reciprocate in time. Take this contract with you. Consider it compensation for the past 10 years. From now on, I won't bother you anymore." I paused for a moment and took the document from his hand. It recorded double compensation for all the fines he had imposed on me at work, the schemes he had taken from me, and the bonuses he had deprived me of. It even included what he felt he owed me over the past decade. Finally, there was a bank card with the password written on it, my birthday. I looked at his face suspiciously, wondering if this was a new tactic of his, or if he had truly given up. I said I wouldn't bother you, and I really won't bother you anymore. Albert seemed to know what I was thinking and responded calmly, "I've figured it out. It's time for me to move on." "That's good." I nodded. I didn't refuse, taking the documents and the card. These things were always mine. Moreover, I knew very well that only by accepting them would I make Albert truly realize that everything between us was completely over. Indeed, as I accepted them, I saw a flicker of wistfulness in Albert's eyes. Soon, there was a sense of relief. "So, can I go see the new house you bought? You know I haven't been doing well since I left you. I also want to see how you've been doing after leaving me," he explained. I knew it was just an excuse, merely his obsession, but I also know his personality very well. What he decides to do, he must accomplish, otherwise he'll be relentless. I didn't want to get involved anymore, and besides, perhaps we'd never see each other again anyway, so a perfect ending would be good. "Let's go." I walked towards the car, but after just a few steps, Albert quickly walked up to me, leading me in another direction. "Let me give you a ride. You injured your leg a couple of days ago, so it's not convenient for you to drive." I didn't refuse, but I didn't expect him to even know I was injured. If this had happened before, I would have been very happy, but unfortunately, we can't go back to the past. Cherishing something only after losing it is worthless. I didn't say anything, just followed Albert to his car. I opened the passenger door, and just as I was about to get in, I saw a small doll in the passenger seat, securely buckled in with a seatbelt, and with a tag on it that read Marjorie. There was also a small line of text: "When I'm not around, let this doll keep Mr. Albert company," followed by a playful emoji. Albert had probably forgotten about it too, and his expression was slightly awkward when he saw the doll. "It's fine, I'll sit in the back." I instinctively moved to close the car door. However, Albert stopped me, yanking the plushie directly from the passenger seat and tossing it into the back. His movements were swift and decisive. I was momentarily taken aback. Marjorie has always enjoyed subtly flaunting Albert's affection for her, whether it's making Albert wear her hair tie on his wrist, placing name-branded trinkets in Albert's office, or sometimes leaving her belongings around the house. Marjorie's presence is everywhere. She seizes every opportunity to make me jealous, trying to push me away. At first, I didn't understand her feelings, and Albert argued and fought. Even once in anger, I directly threw things out, but that time, Albert slapped me hard. "Catherine, are you out of your mind? Young people can be naive, but they mean well. I'm only staying here to avoid hurting her feelings. Why are you so jealous?" Do you know how cheap this petty behavior makes you look? That time, I was crushed. But I gradually realized this was exactly Marjorie's intention. She wanted to use this method to make me back off on my own. You don't have to do this, after all. We have nothing to do with each other now. Even if she were here, it wouldn't matter. I said calmly to Albert. Albert pursed his lips. I know you won't believe it, and I know what you're thinking, but I can tell you very clearly, even if we break up, I won't be with Marjorie. I've said it before. I have no feelings for Marjorie. It's just that seeing her reminds me of how helpless you used to be, which is why I've helped her so much. I couldn't help but sneer. I might have believed his righteous words, but has he forgotten that when his umbrella called mercy tilted toward Marjorie, I became just as helpless as I was before? Talking about this is meaningless now. Let's go, I said calmly. Albert seemed to have thought of something and said, I plan to let Marjorie. Clang. Before he could finish his sentence, the loud sound of a lunchbox hitting the ground came from behind. Next came Marjorie's voice, thick with resentment. Mr. Albert, weren't you sick? Why are you here? I turned around just in time to see Marjorie standing frozen in the distance, her expression a mix of shock and hurt. At her feet lay a dented thermos and spilled porridge, looking quite disheveled, though whether it's genuine emotion or just acting, I can't really tell. I raised an eyebrow and glanced sideways. Albert looked as if caught red-handed. His expression flustered for a moment. In an instant, tranquility was restored as before. Seeing this, I found it amusing. His words were clearly just wishful thinking on his part, yet his heart obviously believed otherwise. How did you get here? Albert asked in a calm voice. Marjorie said in a plaintive tone, you were so seriously ill the other day, I was very worried. So I made some porridge and wanted to continue taking care of you. Just as I arrived downstairs, I saw you drive off somewhere. I was concerned, so I followed you here, but now it seems like you don't need me after all. As she spoke, she crouched down sadly, cleaning up the thermos on the ground. Looks like they've suffered a tremendous blow. Albert wore a subtle expression, seemingly wanting to say something, when Marjorie cut him off. Mr. Albert, I understand. And I also hope you and Catherine can reconcile. You ought to be good to her. It was immature of me. You two go ahead with your work. I'll finish clearing these up and head out first. As she spoke, she deliberately glanced at the stuffed bear thrown on the back seat of the car, lowered her head, and continued cleaning the traces of spilled porridge on the ground. Seeing her so sensible, Albert seemed to be struggling internally. His feet moved slightly, but he still stopped. You go back first. I'll have someone clean it up later. No need. Marjorie shook her head. Mr. Albert, you don't need to worry about me. I'm no longer the little girl who needed your care. When you were sick recently, I took care of you for several days, so I know how to manage things. At the mention of care, Albert's expression clearly showed a hint of self-reproach again, yet he forcibly averted his gaze. Let's get in the car. He opened the car door. I didn't get in and instead proactively told him, I'll drive myself there. Go take care of her. We've already broken up. There's no need to keep acting in front of me. After saying this, I clearly saw Marjorie's eyes flicker with a momentary flash of delight. She looked over at us, yet her words were full of innocence. Did you break up? Why, Catherine, is she still mad at me? Did I come at a bad time? It's none of your business. We broke up peacefully. Albert finished speaking and looked at me. I said I would take you there, and no matter what happens today, I will keep my promise. As soon as his words fell, Marjorie suddenly groaned, clutched her chest, and collapsed to the ground. Marjorie, what's wrong with you? Albert changed his expression and almost without hesitation stepped forward to help her up. His eyes filled with concern. Marjorie lay pale-faced on the ground without speaking. Albert grew increasingly anxious, supporting her as he quickly walked to the car. Just as he was about to settle her into the back seat, he suddenly remembered me and hesitated, casting a glance in my direction. I know what he's thinking. Human life matters. Let's send her to the hospital. Albert bit his lower lip, as if finally making a decision. Wait for me at the new place. I'll come find you after taking her to the hospital. After saying this, he helped Marjorie into the car and then took the driver's seat, watching the speeding cars pass by. My heart remains calm. Albert may or may not have noticed, but I know for sure that Marjorie is pretending. However, this has nothing to do with me. I was about to drive to the new house when I received a call from a friend. The second project became an instant hit online as soon as it was launched, attracting a large number of fans. Now, some foreign companies also want to discuss collaboration with us. A friend asked me to accompany her on a business trip temporarily, without hesitation. I agreed and immediately turned the car around to head for the airport. The plan was quite sudden. As soon as we landed, we rushed to finalize the proposal. To ensure smooth communication with the other party, we also prepared a translated version. Previously, we knew very little about foreign companies. To avoid any mishaps, we had to race against time to prepare, meticulously highlighting every advantage of our company. My friend and I were so busy that we only slept 4 hours a day. At times, we could even fall asleep standing up. Fortunately, the effort finally paid off. After the meeting, the translator told us that the other party felt we were well prepared and the proposal was comprehensive, so they agreed to collaborate with us. Our friends hugged each other joyfully. And that night we finally got a good night's sleep. I hadn't had much time to check messages these days, and it was only then that I noticed Albert had sent me quite a few messages and made several calls. It was when I had just arrived abroad. Albert told me he was already downstairs at the new house, asking why I wasn't there. I didn't expect him to actually come looking for me. After all, every time in the past when it came to matters related to Marjorie, he would dive deep into them and completely forget about my existence. After some thought, I chose not to reply. So much time has passed he probably doesn't even care anymore, and we're already over, so there's no point in talking about these things anymore. I traveled abroad with friends again, visited the local recommended attractions, and then returned to the country. By the time we arrived at the airport, it was already late at night. After parting ways with my friends, we each went home. Just as I lay back on my big bed, there came a loud banging at the door. Like an outburst of anger, the noise echoed noisily through the empty hallway. Thinking it was a rival coming to pick a fight, I stormed over to open the door in a rage. But the moment I opened it, a figure rushed toward me, and before I could dodge, their stumble sent me staggering back several steps. The heavy scent of alcohol mixed with a faintly familiar fragrance wafted toward me. If it wasn't Albert, then who else could it be? I felt somewhat helpless. What are you doing here again? Didn't we agree it's over? Albert let out a drunken belch. Yeah, it's over. I'm with Marjorie now. Are you happy? He looked at me with a desolate expression. Perhaps he still wanted to see a trace of sorrow, tension, or some other emotion on my face, but I still let him down. It was expected that Marjorie would end up with him. I don't care about his love life. Then why did you come here? Does your girlfriend know you came here drinking so much in the middle of the night? I'll call her to come pick you up. Not wanting to deal with trouble, I took out my phone and was about to call Marjorie, when suddenly Albert grabbed my phone in a fit of rage and threw it away. It shattered into pieces with a loud bang. Don't you feel anything at all? Do you know I waited for you the entire night that day, but you stood me up to avoid me. You even flew abroad. He scoffed, pointed at me, and swayed as he spoke. Catherine, you're nothing but a big liar. I regret ever being with you. Had I known you could be so heartless, we should have broken up long ago. He roared with near hysteria. I worried it might disturb the neighbors, but feared closing the door would only exacerbate the situation beyond control. Fortunately, Marjorie hurriedly arrived at that moment. She glared at me fiercely, then grabbed Albert's arm with a pitiful expression, pleading meekly. Albert, you've had too much to drink. Let me take you home. Okay. Upon seeing Marjorie, Albert seemed to regain some semblance of rationality. Having calmed down somewhat, he gave me another deep look before finally turning around and slowly descending the stairs with Marjorie's support. Since then, I've rarely heard any news about Albert. Marjorie would occasionally post about their sweet daily life, but often the updates would be deleted within minutes. Soon after, Marjorie's account also fell silent, but according to friends, Albert's company hasn't been doing well during this period. Due to his negligence in management, some turmoil arose within the company, coupled with Marjorie's bullying by leveraging her position. A large number of employees had already resigned. Albert wanted to stop the situation from escalating, but it was already too late. Some colleagues with whom we had good relationships even reached out to me and my friends. They were all veterans who had once worked under me in the company. Without prior discussion, my friends and I unanimously decided to take them in. From their words, I also heard some updates about Albert's private life. It is said that he and Marjorie frequently argued, sometimes even quarreling openly in the office in front of everyone. At first, Marjorie treated Albert with great deference and would take the initiative to apologize, but after 2 or 3 times, she dared to slam the table and argue with Albert. Once, things escalated so badly that Marjorie tore up a proposal meant for a client, costing the company hundreds of thousands in losses. Albert fired Marjorie in a fit of anger. However, it seems they still live together now, but their relationship has worsened. Once, I even saw them going to the hospital, probably took action. My former colleague sighed with some regret, feeling fortunate that I had a clear mind and cut my losses in time. After all, Albert is now vastly different from before, and the company's situation is far worse than it used to be. Luckily, I jumped ship in time, otherwise, who knows how long I would have been trapped in that vicious cycle. I didn't say much more. Albert, every step I've taken to get here has been exactly as I envisioned. The same man who brings success can also bring failure. Once you start down the wrong path, unless you turn back in time, you'll keep going further astray. Clearly, he has no intention of turning back now. During this period, my friend's company has seen increasingly impressive profits. The foreign enterprise project was perfectly concluded, and a new contract was signed in just 3 months. She achieved what was originally planned to take a year. In the following days, my friend and I discussed expanding the business. Our ideas aligned perfectly. However, considering numerous factors, we ultimately decided against it. After several days of discussion, the new plan still remained undecided. We even had an argument. However, unlike Albert, my friend wasn't that stubborn. In the past, when I had conflicts with Albert regarding work, Albert would firmly insist on doing things his way, whether right or wrong, otherwise the plan couldn't proceed and would have to be shelved. But my friend would listen carefully and then offer opposing opinions. Our conflicts will only mature through constant collisions. After another day of arguing with friends, I returned to the house exhausted. The newly purchased house was already renovated and ready to move into. I soaked myself in the bathtub, feeling much more relaxed, pondering how to proceed next, when a phone call came through. I wiped my hands and picked up the phone, seeing the caller ID, slightly raised an eyebrow. Albert, it has been nearly half a year since we last met. Since the day he was taken away by Marjorie, we haven't seen each other again. Occasionally we'd bump into each other at business banquets, but most encounters ended with a brief greeting before parting ways. Yet every time after such meetings, I could always feel Marjorie's intense and malicious gaze directed at me. I understand this is the current partner's hostility towards the ex, but I don't understand. After all this time, Albert is already standing by her side, yet she's still holding a grudge. After some thought, unsure what he wanted to say, I still answered the call. Catherine, my water pipe at home is broken. Could you come over and help me fix it? As soon as the call connected, his voice still sounded a bit hoarse, as if he had just been crying. After some thought, I replied to him calmly. Find a repairman. I felt somewhat puzzled. I wasn't sure why he had contacted me. In the past, Albert was always busy. To ease his burden, I specifically learned how to repair plumbing and electrical appliances, so whenever something at home broke down, no matter what I was doing, I would rush back to fix it. But now we've broken up, and him coming to find me is really inappropriate. After a few seconds of silence, Albert finally spoke. Marjorie and I broke up a couple of days ago, and the company fired her too. I've already cut all ties with her. I was somewhat surprised. Before I could ask, his voice choked up. I've already called a repairman, but it's too late now. Catherine, I know you don't want to see me right now, but I'm out of options. It's too late, and I don't know who else to turn to now. I'm truly at my wit's end. If you don't help me this time, I might really. He choked back a sob. His tone was desperate. A biting wind howled through the receiver. I keenly sensed something was wrong. Where are you now? Albert paused for a long moment before answering. The rooftop. I couldn't help but recall the past. Shortly after the company was founded, when a disastrous decision led to massive losses. At that time, Albert was on the verge of a mental breakdown, writing a suicide note in the middle of the night and climbing onto the windowsill. Fortunately, I noticed in time, or the consequences would have been unthinkable. I thought he was rational enough, but I didn't expect him to do such a foolish thing. If I didn't know, I naturally wouldn't reach out to him. But now that I'm aware he might be in danger, I can't just stand by and do nothing. After some thought, I sighed and said, wait for me. After quickly changing clothes, I drove back to this familiar place. As soon as I opened the door, I saw Albert with eyes red from crying. A pipe had burst in the room, and the floor was covered in water. I took off my shoes and walked in, only to find that it was just a loose connection. I grabbed some tools, tightened it a few times, and it was fixed in no time. The building's waterproofing is quite good, no need to worry about flooding downstairs. Just make sure to clean up the standing water properly. After giving a few words of advice, I stood up to leave, but I had only taken 2 steps when Albert suddenly pulled me into a tight embrace from behind. Catherine, You still have feelings for me, don't you? Otherwise, you wouldn't have come. I'm sorry. I was wrong before. I've realized my mistake. Can we go back to how things were, please? I froze for a moment. I pulled my hand away from his. You've misunderstood. I'm not here to volunteer. The repair fee is 100. Albert looked at me, his thin lips trembling. After a long while, he finally took out his phone from his pocket and transferred the money to me. 10,000. That's too much. I returned the extra money to him and showed him the screen. See, now we're even now, he murmured, repeating the words I had just spoken, then gave a bitter smile in the end. I ignored him and left the neighborhood directly. On my way out, I encountered a stray cat. I took out a 100 yuan bill, went to the nearby supermarket, bought a sausage, and placed it before the cat. Then I drove home. Soon I realized that Albert had also let go, 1 month after the project went live. I received a lawsuit from his company. The lawsuit accused me of stealing the company's confidential documents. The evidence is also quite comprehensive. In addition to paper evidence and some transaction records, there's also a video, which was recorded on the day I fixed the plumbing for Albert. It was edited, showing only the moment I was searching for tools in the room. Albert took it out of context, claiming I was actually looking for confidential documents at the time. The video was somehow leaked online and spread like wildfire. The project was already highly anticipated, and many who had been displeased with it were all too happy to see it fail, spreading the news far and wide. Some bystanders were left confused, not understanding what was happening. But when someone dug up the fact that I had jumped ship from Albert to my friend's company, and after seeing the contrasting developments between my friend's company and Albert's company over the past year, they also became convinced that I had stolen core secrets, joining in the chorus of condemnation. Some even called for a boycott against us. I was taken to the police station. When I saw Albert, the plaintiff, I noticed he avoided eye contact with me. I already had a rough idea of what was going on. You and Marjorie never broke up, did you? The person who stole the confidential information and nearly bankrupted the company was actually Marjorie. That day, you lied to me about the broken pipes, all to make me a part of your plan. I spoke calmly and unhurriedly, voicing my suspicions. At the time, I noticed many unusual things in the villa. For example, the women's slippers at the entrance, tissues with lipstick marks in the bathroom trash, and even the blue velvet curtains hanging on the windows, a fabric he detested the most. At the time, I didn't think much of it, just assumed that perhaps his personality had changed somewhat after being with Marjorie. But now it seems some things never change. Albert pursed his lips. I didn't want it to be like this either. Marjorie is still young. She has many opportunities ahead of her. We can't let one wrong decision ruin her life. What about me? I sneered. I've been with you for 9 years, helped you so much, and you can just calmly destroy me like this. Albert stiffened slightly and apologized to me. I just found it laughable. What's the use anyway? He has the freedom to love whomever he chooses, and if he abandons me for someone else, I won't blame him. But I cannot bear the thought that after all I've done for him, he would push me into the abyss for another person's mistake. With my last glimmer of hope, I looked at him. Are you sure you want to protect her at the cost of ruining me? After a long pause, icy words escaped his thin lips. Let's just say it's my fault. With that, he didn't say another word and turned to leave. Watching his figure grow increasingly distant, the last shred of affection I had for him vanished completely. Little did he know, the one who would be dragged into the abyss next was him, not me. A week later, the trial began as scheduled. Since my friend's company had already gained fame, and this incident had caused quite a stir, the trial was broadcast live online. Albert's lawyer presented all the evidence aggressively, subtly setting traps for me in his arguments. Albert sat beside him, silent and not daring to look up at me. Meanwhile, Marjorie sat in the audience, her gaze at me once again filled with the same smugness and provocation as before, as if convinced I would lose. But when my friend presented the prepared evidence one by one, both of them were stunned. At the same time, my friend also produced a recording. The conversation between Albert and Marjorie was crystal clear. Everyone in the room was aware of their scheme, knowing that Marjorie had sold the company's secrets for money, causing the company not only to miss a development opportunity but also to be burdened with exorbitant breach penalties. In the recording, Marjorie was crying uncontrollably. Mr. Albert, I'm still young, and what's more, I'm carrying your child. Do you really want our child to be born only to discover their mother is in prison? I know I was wrong. You can hit me, scold me, even kill me, but please don't leave me. Then came the sound of a slap through the receiver. I'm more inclined to think Marjorie grabbed Albert's wrist to slap her own face. After all, she was all too familiar with such self-inflicted schemes. Marjorie sat in the audience, her smug expression wiped away, turning deathly pale. She could no longer sit still. It's impossible, this recording is fake, this was synthesized by them. She flailed wildly trying to snatch the recording away, but before she could even rise from her seat, the staff pinned her down. Fine, I'll help you, but this is the last time, only this once. After a moment, Albert's cold and merciless voice slowly rang out. The entire venue gasped in shock as they watched the two. In the live stream, many people also began cursing loudly. I looked at Albert, who seemed to have anticipated this outcome long ago. His face was merely pale, without any overly dramatic reaction. The judge looked at Albert and asked whether he confirmed the authenticity of the recording and if he had any rebuttal materials. The entire room watched him, waiting for his next move. Marjorie, her eyes bloodshot, urged Albert to clarify the truth and make him say the recording was fake, but Albert simply stood up and slowly walked up to Marjorie. The staff saw that he was very calm and didn't try to stop him much. Marjorie thought he wanted to discuss countermeasures with her, so she relaxed and her face lit up with excitement as she lowered her voice. Albert, quickly find a way to clarify and tell them this recording is fake. Be rational. Just like before, you and Catherine have already broken up. Don't be reluctant to let go. Before she could finish her words, Albert suddenly raised his hand and slapped her hard across the face. The recording is real, I admit it. To help Marjorie, I maliciously slandered Catherine. His voice was clear and resounding. Everyone present heard it loud and clear. The live stream paused for a moment, then quickly flooded with comments again, cursing Albert and Marjorie. Marjorie completely broke down, her eyes bloodshot, struggling hysterically to choke Albert, before being forcefully slammed face down onto the ground by the staff. Albert walked up to me, apologized, and asked why I had prepared in advance. My expression remained as calm as ever as I explained the entire sequence of events to him. Shortly after I left Albert, my friend accidentally discovered their scheme and warned me to be careful. That day when I went to Albert's house to fix the plumbing, I already knew I might fall into his trap, but I still went, not only because I was worried about him, but also because of the plan my friend and I had. After the project went viral, we needed to develop faster, so back then, my friend and I were discussing acquiring Albert's company. However, there was never the right timing. Albert coming to us himself was the perfect opportunity to complete our plan. I was still hesitating, but his complete indifference to me that day made me fully resolve. Word by word, I softly told him the truth he didn't know. Albert instead smiled with relief. So that's how it is. I looked at his smile and felt nothing but chills. Subconsciously sensing something was wrong, a glaring flash of light caught my eye. I saw the gleaming blade hidden in his hand. In the blink of an eye, just as I was about to move, he swiftly turned around, raised his hand, and slashed. The next second, the previously hysterical Marjorie had her throat slit, her eyes wide open as she collapsed into a pool of blood. None of the staff expected him to make such a move. By the time they snapped out of their daze and tried to intervene, it was already too late. As if he had practiced countless times, Albert slit his wrist without hesitation. The moment he fell, he flashed a smile at me. His lips seemed to say, "Catherine, this is the last time. I'll help you." The scene was in chaos, and someone called an ambulance. Shortly after, both were taken to the hospital. Marjorie could not be saved and died, resulting in 2 deaths, mother and unborn child. Albert lost too much blood but fortunately survived after emergency treatment. He was arrested by the police for intentional homicide, sent to prison, and sentenced to death. After public opinion shifted online, the friend who originally intended to acquire Albert's company ultimately decided against it after much deliberation. She thought what I said was right, that this approach was somewhat too unethical. In the end, we still took it step by step, slowly moving toward our goal. However, strangely enough, that very day Albert's lawyer came to me and said Albert had made a will, transferring all his shares and property to me. Albert, after his death, all the assets were under my control. After some thought, I changed the company's name and altered its nature. Our services target all companies, helping them investigate the true circumstances of employees on blacklists, and our fees are very affordable, so even the smallest businesses can place orders. This is to assist those ordinary workers who accidentally ended up on industry blacklists. I stood atop what was once a glorious building, looking down at the ground below. The rest of life, smooth sailing, thriving and prosperous, extra. Albert perspective. Every day after breaking up with Catherine, I spent in unease and regret. I admit I showed partiality and pity toward Marjorie, but my deepest love was always for Catherine. I never saw this as contradictory. Marjorie asked me when we would break up. I vaguely told her to wait longer. I knew she would wait, and Catherine wouldn't break up with me either. After all, we've been together for 10 years, and I believe she wouldn't give up on our relationship. So when she brought up breaking up that day, I didn't really care much. At first, I thought she was just being dramatic, but later I noticed her growing increasingly cold and distant. Eventually, there was no trace of love left in her eyes when she looked at me. Only then did I finally panic. I tried to win her back, but she kept shutting me out. Marjorie helped me come up with ideas, saying women understand women best. I followed her advice, flaunting my new relationship to Catherine, sending her fake pregnancy test results. But I didn't understand why she seemed to drift further away. After she stood me up and fled abroad to avoid me, I completely broke down. I couldn't fathom why I had to grovel like this. In a fit of rage, I accepted Marjorie's confession. When I heard she had returned to the country, I drank heavily. I don't know what happened that day. It seemed like I went to find Catherine, and then it seemed like I was taken away by Marjorie. A month later, I discovered Marjorie was pregnant and finally made up my mind to forget Catherine. But for some reason, the company's situation kept getting worse. I investigated day and night, only to find that the one who betrayed me was actually Marjorie. I broke down. Marjorie was frustrated and regretful in front of me, but I still softened and decided to help her. I thought, Catherine has already succeeded, and even if delayed, it wouldn't be a big deal. But Marjorie is still young, and I wanted to give her a chance. But that day Catherine fixed the leaking pipe for me and took out the trash as well. Standing on my bedroom balcony, I saw her crouching down to feed a stray kitten. After she left, Marjorie returned from the other end of the road. She walked up to the kitten and paused for 2 seconds. Suddenly, she raised her foot and kicked the obediently eating kitten with a vicious force. At that moment, I felt as if struck by lightning. Suddenly, I realized I was rotting from the inside out. Thankfully, there was still one last chance to turn back. It seems I've never helped Catherine in my entire life, just this once. Let me help her. Consider it atonement.